Chapter 886. However, Feng Tai did not provoke Lu Ming as much as the rising sun did. He had seen the rising sun's fate and was wary of Lu Ming. Tianyun, it won't be easy for you to defeat me. I don't believe that your inscription Tao is that strong. Feng Tai said in a deep voice. Make your move. You'll know once you try. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Feng Tai did not say anything. He waved his hand, and 12 giant puppets appeared in front of him. They were 12 giant wolves. Their bodies were black, and they exuded a powerful aura. There were 6 Class 6 10th LV and 6 Peak Class 6 9th LV. Each of them was 5 meters tall and 10 meters long. They looked like 12 giant monsters. The 12 giant wolf puppets formed a big formation. With a roar, they pounced on Lu Ming. There was a loud roar in the fighting ring. This Feng Tai should have ignited 7 spirit lamps for each level. Lu Ming's heart stirred. An ordinary inscription master was able to control 1 or 2 puppets, and that was already pretty good. But Feng Tai was able to control 12 powerful puppets at the same time, and he was even able to form a formation. His mental energy was definitely very strong, far surpassing an ordinary inscription master. At the same time, his use of the spirit flame must have reached the peak of the subtle realm. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to do so. In the past, Lu Ming had only learned a little about the tribes in the underground world from Liaozong. He did not understand the essence. Moreover, the talents of the underground world were limited and their spirit flame was not strong. Their control of the spirit flame was also very shallow. Generally, they could only control 1 puppet. They were far inferior to the prodigies of the talisman puppet sect. Lu Ming put his hands behind his back and smiled faintly at the 12 puppets. He did not summon any puppets or inscription scrolls. What is Tianyun trying to do? Is he trying to use a formation to fight against Feng Tai's puppet battle formation? How is that possible? Carving the formation in an instant. Carving the formation can't be very advanced. It's okay to use it to deal with some opponents with great disparity in strength, but to use it to deal with Feng Tai's puppet battle formation, this is a bit too much. It's hard to say. Tianyun has already reached the heart of perfection realm, and his speed of inscribing formations is peerlessly fast. Perhaps he can instantly inscribe some powerful formations to resist Feng Tai's puppet battle formation. Seeing this situation, many people began to discuss. Just as the puppet was about to reach Lu Ming lightly stepped forward. Instantly, numerous spell formations appeared on the ground. There were a total of 12 spell formations, each of which glowed brightly as human silhouettes appeared. Lu Ming. What the formation condensed were all images of Lu Ming. They were exactly the same as him. The onlookers were dumbfounded. What kind of formation is this? Why haven't I seen it before? I've never even heard of it, let alone seen it. Someone exclaimed. 12 images of Lu Ming appeared beside the 12 puppets. Their figures flashed as they rushed towards the puppets. Then, they stretched out their palms and slapped the puppets. Break! Feng Tai roared as he controlled the puppets to attack the 12 images. Pong! 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 The 12 images were very fragile. They directly collapsed after being hit by the puppets. However, before Feng Tai could reveal a smile, the collapsed images turned into lines of inscriptions that spread across the 12 puppets, forming a formation and entering the puppets' bodies. I don't care what tricks you're playing, take this. Feng Tai roared as he controlled the puppets to continue attacking Lu Ming. This time, Lu Ming stood on the fighting ring with his hands behind his back. He really didn't move, not even his feet. What is Tianyun trying to do? He's not moving at all. Does he want to die? Or is he going to admit defeat? At such a close distance, it's too late for him to inscribe a formation to resist. Has he really given up? Does he know that he's no match for Feng Tai? There was an uproar all around. Tianyun, fight back. Below the ring, Bai Qi Shui shouted with a worried look. Roar! The giant wolf puppet roared as it waved its sharp claws towards Lu Ming. It's over. Tianyun is over. I don't know what's wrong with him. He's not fighting back or admitting defeat. Someone exclaimed. Lu Ming didn't admit defeat, so Feng Tai could continue to attack. In the sky, by Shijin, Du Songjue, and the others also looked at the fighting ring without blinking. Their eyes were full of doubts. They didn't know what Lu Ming was planning. Pretending to be mysterious. Then, you'll lose. Feng Tai's eyes were filled with madness and a hint of joy. He could finally take revenge for the previous incident. Seeing that the giant wolf puppet's claws were about to reach Lu Ming's body, the 12 giant wolf puppets suddenly stopped and stiffened in front of Lu Ming. Huh, what's going on? Could it be that Feng Tai is showing mercy? It must be so. Feng Tai must see that Tianyun can't fight back, so he stopped the puppets. Everyone guessed, but they didn't see that Feng Tai's face had become very strange. It was full of doubt, surprise, and even shock. Roar. The 12 giant wolf puppets roared and then turned around one after another, standing in front of Lu Ming and looking at Feng Tai. Many people were puzzled. Something was wrong with this posture. Go. At this time, Lu Ming spoke. Then, the 12 giant wolf puppets roared and rushed towards Feng Tai. Impossible. Feng Tai let out an incredulous roar. The blue light between his eyebrows shone, and the spiritual flame was jumping crazily. However, he found that he had completely lost control of the 12 puppets. It was as if his connection with the 12 puppets had been cut off. He was shocked. Rumble. The 12 giant puppets stepped on the fighting ring and pounced towards him. He roared and waved his hands, inscribing a formation on the ground. Light shone and the formation appeared. Unfortunately, it couldn't stop the iron hooves of the puppets. In an instant, the formation he inscribed was destroyed. The giant wolf puppet's huge claws grabbed towards Feng Tai. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. Feng Tai shouted. The giant wolf puppet's claws stopped above Feng Tai's head. All around, everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. What's going on? What the hell is going on? How did Feng Tai's puppets get controlled by Tianyun? I don't fucking know. Nestle, what's going on? Could it be that the formation that Tianyun inscribed before, the formation that condensed 12 identical bodies, is that the formation that controlled Feng Tai's puppets instead? What? There's such a formation in the world? Why didn't I know about it? There was an uproar in the surroundings. Many people couldn't control their emotions and cursed. The most important thing was that this scene was too strange and shocking. What kind of formation is this? In the sky, Bai Shijin and Du Songjue looked at each other in a daze. Chapter 887. Liao Cong's master never mentioned anything like this. If he did, he would have passed it down. Du Songjue said. The others nodded in agreement. Looks like Lu Ming didn't just receive Master Liao Cong's inheritance, he also had other fortuitous encounters. Bai Shijin exclaimed. This array is very magical. However, its effect is not as great as imagined. It is completely dependent on one's strong mental strength and the array to cut off the other party's connection with the puppet and take it for one's own use. Lu Ming's mental strength is much stronger than Feng Tai's. This is why he can do it. Du Songjue pondered as he commented. His eyesight was extremely sharp. His guess was not far from the truth. Lu Ming's formation was, of course, learned from Dandan. Just like what Du Songjue said, it requires a much stronger spiritual power than the opponent to be able to do it. If one's spiritual power was weaker than the opponent's, then it would be impossible to do it. But other than Du Songjue, who was a supreme being, normal people wouldn't be able to see through it. Naturally, they were shocked beyond words. Meng Chong was also stunned for a moment before he announced, "This battle, Tianyun wins." The crowd was in an uproar. It was the first time they saw such a victory. Roar. The 12 giant wolf puppets roared and walked towards Lu Ming. Wait, Tianyun, my puppets, can you give them back to me? Feng Tai shouted. Yours? You must be mistaken. These puppets are obviously mine. If you don't believe me, you can call them and see if they will respond to you. Lu Ming said with a smile. Feng Tai stammered for a long time, but he couldn't say a word. His face flushed red, then he gritted his teeth and said, "These puppets were originally mine. Everyone saw it. Don't you know they are spoils of war? If you have the ability, take them back." Lu Ming stared at Feng Tai with an unfriendly gaze. Roar. The 12 puppets roared and stared coldly at Feng Tai. They bared their teeth as if they were going to pounce on him at any time. Feng Tai's face turned pale. Lu Ming smiled and waved his hand, putting the 12 puppets into his storage ring. Feng Tai's heart was bleeding. The 12 puppets, especially the 6 puppets at the 10th LV of the 6th level, were as powerful as warriors in the exceptional spiritual sea realm. Moreover, they were invulnerable and fearless. When they fought, they were even more powerful than warriors in the exceptional spiritual sea realm. Each of them was priceless. He had paid a huge price to obtain it. His heart was bleeding. The same level of inscriptions. The inscription symbol scroll was much easier to refine because it was a one-time use item. It could only be used once, and then it would disappear. But a puppet could be used for a long time. The refining process was very complex, and the materials used were very precious. The price was much higher than an inscription symbol scroll of the same level. Lu Ming was in a good mood as he left the fighting ring. Around, many people cast envious looks at Lu Ming. But Ruyan Tenghua and the other talents of the puppet faction looked dignified. They thought that if they met Lu Ming later, they couldn't use the puppets. Otherwise, they would lose a lot of money. In this way, Lu Ming also entered the top 12 smoothly. The competition continued. Soon, the top 12 were all born. After a break, the competition continued. It was the competition of the top 12 to the top 6. This time, Lu Ming's opponent was still a talent of the puppet faction. This person was very strong and ranked higher than Feng Tai. But facing Lu Ming, he was trembling with fear. He didn't even dare to take out the puppets. He just fought with Lu Ming with inscription arrays. The main reason was that he was afraid that the puppets would be taken by Lu Ming, an inscription master who majored in puppets. If he didn't use puppets and only used arrays, how strong could his combat power be? Lu Ming waved his hands. The 12 giant wolf puppets that he had obtained from Feng Tai charged forward. With the help of Lu Ming's array, they easily defeated this prodigy. This person was really aggrieved. He majored in puppets, but he couldn't use puppets. He was also beaten by Lu Ming's puppets. He was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. There was another person who was also depressed to death. That was Feng Tai. These were his puppets, but now they were used by Lu Ming to fight against the enemy. Lu Ming's competition was unique and not intense at all. The other competitions were very intense. On the battle stage, light shone, and it was an eye-opener for many people. Soon, the top 6 were also out. Unsurprisingly, Yin Tenghua, Mengjia, Hu Ming, Lu Ming, and 2 other talents were in the top 6. Next, the top 6 would advance to the top 3. After entering the top 3, the 4 of them, together with Jimai, would compete for the top 3, which was also the quota to enter the skygazing grounds. Many people were in high spirits. This was because in this round, Lu Ming, Yin Tenghua, Mengjia, and Hu Ming were going to have a duel no matter what. The 4 of them were all talents who had mastered the spiritual fire and cultivated to the heart attainment realm. Their strength was obviously above the others. The competition continues. The first round, Tianyun against Hu Ming. Meng Chong announced loudly. The people present were shocked, and then they cheered loudly. Tianyun against Hu Ming. This was going to be interesting. This time, Hu Ming was the biggest dark horse, but Tianyun could also be said to be a dark horse because he had only shown powerful martial arts before. No one thought that his inscription Dao would be so powerful. The battle between the 2 dark horses was about to see who was stronger. Moreover, Hu Ming was from the Talisman faction. He was not afraid of Lu Ming's arrays that could cut off other people's puppets. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 2 of them flew up to the fighting stage. Tianyun Zhengzi, please. Hu Ming was very polite. He nodded slightly and greeted Lu Ming. He called Lu Ming Zhengzi. This was one of the few people in the Talisman puppet sect who called Lu Ming Zhengzi. Please. Lu Ming nodded and cupped his fists. Stomp! Stomp! Hu Ming was the first to move. He took a few steps and inscriptions appeared on the ground. In an instant, a few arrays shone brightly. Scarlet flames condensed and formed battle swords that floated in front of Hu Ming. At the same time, a total of 15 inscription talisman scrolls floated around him. The inscription talisman scrolls opened one by one. Some of the talisman scrolls were for protection. They formed a flaming shield and some formed a flaming dragon. Whoosh! Roar! The flaming battle swords and the flaming dragon attacked Lu Ming. What a powerful flame! Lu Ming's eyes flickered. Regardless of whether it was the array or the inscription talisman scroll that Hu Ming inscribed, they were all flames. Moreover, this kind of flame had a frighteningly high temperature. Lu Ming felt that it was comparable to the pure purple heavenly fire cultivated by the ancient Wang family. Moreover, even though inscription masters didn't comprehend the concept of heaven and earth, every single inscription was in accordance with the great Tao of heaven and earth. They were obtained from the great Tao of heaven and earth, so the inscriptions inscribed by inscription masters would naturally contain the concept of heaven and earth. The flames that Hu Ming inscribed with arrays were extremely terrifying. Bang! Bang! Chapter 888. Lu Ming's array formation was different from Hu Ming's. Most of Hu Ming's array formations were red, but Lu Ming's array formations were blue. A dragon roared and a blue dragon condensed in the blue array formation. It rushed towards Hu Ming's battle sword and the flaming dragon and collided with each other. For a time, there was a continuous roar and a sizzling sound could be heard on the fighting stage. White mist filled the entire place. Lu Ming's array formations were all about water. The attacks that were launched were all related to water. Lu Ming took a few steps and waved his fingers. Arrays kept appearing on the fighting ring. There were water swords, water spears, flood dragons, ferocious tigers, and so on that were condensed from water. They pounced on Hu Ming. Hu Ming was also constantly inscribing array formations. At the same time, he was using inscription talismans to launch powerful attacks. Of course, Hu Ming's attacks were all blazing flames. It was a showdown between water and fire. Tianyun has learned so many things. The array formations he inscribed before were not related to water, but other attributes. That's right. Tianyun is really amazing. He is a peerless genius. Not only is his martial arts strong, but his inscription skills are also amazing. We have underestimated him. That's right. With his talent, he is qualified to be a Zhongzi candidate. That's right. Inscriptionists were the same as martial artists. They were also biased. The inscriptions and array formations that they mastered were also biased towards a certain type. For example, Hu Ming was biased towards fire. The array formations that he inscribed were all related to fire. Some people were biased towards water, ice, thunder, and so on. Moreover, array formations were the same as martial arts. Many of them were passed down privately, and not everyone could cultivate them. It was like a secret skill. The spiritual fire was like a martial artist's true essence. Array formations were like martial arts. Go! Lu Ming took out the puppets that he had obtained from Feng Tai. With a wave of his hand, the 12 puppets roared and rushed towards Hu Ming. While controlling the puppets, Lu Ming also inscribed a formation. This left many people dumbfounded. Lu Ming was controlling 12 puppets at the same time, and he was still able to continuously inscribe formations without slowing down at all. This was somewhat terrifying. Just how strong was Lu Ming's spiritual power? Hu Ming's eyes revealed a dignified look. He waved his hand, and another stack of inscription scrolls appeared in front of him. His spiritual fire spread out, and he constantly activated the inscription scrolls. He constantly attacked Lu Ming and the puppets. Moreover, all of Hu Ming's inscription talisman scrolls were at the 6th level and 10th level. They were very powerful. So powerful, both of them are so powerful. Tianyun and Hu Ming's strength is no weaker than Yin Tenghua and Meng Jia's. That's right. Any one of them has the strength to enter the top 3. Even many of the older generation nodded in shock. Below the stage, Jimai, Yin Tenghua, and Meng Jia's eyes were very dignified. If water doesn't work, then let's add ice. Lu Ming's mouth curved into a smile. He waved his fingers, and a formation appeared. The temperature of the stage dropped sharply, and countless ice swords appeared, stabbing towards Hu Ming. Lu Ming's hands moved faster and faster. On the stage, more and more formations appeared, and more attacks were launched. The dense ice swords had begun to suppress Hu Ming's attacks. Coupled with the attacks of the 12 puppets, Hu Ming was already at a disadvantage. Fast, too fast. How can Tianyun's inscription speed be so terrifying? It's far faster than Hu Ming's. Tianyun's cultivation level is higher than Hu Ming's. Tianyun has at least reached the middle stage of heart satisfaction. So terrifying, a mere 6th-level inscriptionist can reach the middle stage of heart satisfaction. Too powerful. Everyone was amazed. At this time, the stage was filled with white light and cold air, as if it could freeze the air. Hu Ming had no power to fight back. I admit defeat. At this time, Hu Ming suddenly shouted. Lu Ming moved his hand and waved it again. The array on the fighting ring disappeared simultaneously. Hu Ming panted heavily, and the spiritual flame between his eyebrows pulsed continuously. He felt exhausted. In the previous battle, his spiritual flame had been severely depleted, and he could no longer fight. On the other hand, Lu Ming was calm and composed, as if the previous battle had not consumed much of his energy. Tianyun Zhengzi is strong and has profound spiritual power. Hu Ming admires you. Hu Ming smiled and cupped his fists. You're strong too. I won by luck. Lu Ming smiled. Tianyun wins this battle. Next, Yin Tenghua against Zhang Xian. Meng Chong announced. Everyone perked up and watched the next battle. Yin Tenghua was a prodigy of the marionette faction, and Zhang Xian was also a prodigy of the marionette faction. Both of them were very strong, and the battle was very intense. On the stage, a large group of puppets were fighting, but in the end, Yin Tenghua's spiritual power was stronger, and his spiritual flame was stronger. He controlled more puppets and defeated Zhang Xian. Then, it was Mengjia's turn. Mengjia was also a prodigy of the marionette faction. He controlled an army of puppets and won. Just like that, the top 3 were born. They were Lu Ming, Yin Tenghua, Mengjia, and Jimai. They were the top 4. The 4 of them looked at each other. They only needed to eliminate one more person to get a spot on the observation platform. The 4 of you will take turns to fight, and you will be ranked according to your results, Meng Chong announced. Lu Ming nodded. Usually, the ranking would be based on this hairstyle. It was the fairest. In this way, each person would have to fight 3 rounds against the other 3. The first battle, Tianyun against Yin Tenghua. Next, Jimai against Mengjia. Meng Chong announced. As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere in the arena was completely ignited. The final battle was finally about to begin. Lu Ming and Yin Tenghua went up at the same time and stood facing each other. Between Tianyun and Yin Tenghua, who do you think will win? I think it will be Tianyun. Tianyun has that kind of formation that can restrain the puppets. At the same time, Tianyun is also very strong. Being able to defeat Hu Ming is enough to prove his strength. I think so too. Among the 4 of them, only Jimai can fight with Tianyun. Yin Tenghua and Mengjia are probably weaker than him. The crowd began to discuss, but now, no one looked down on Lu Ming. Up until now, Lu Ming had already proven himself. Tianyun, although your formation is strange, it must have its limits. It can't casually cut off the opponent's connection with the puppets and take them for your own use. It won't be that easy for you to defeat me, Yin Tenghua said. His eyes were filled with strong battle intent. Obviously, a prodigy like him wouldn't admit defeat so easily. We'll know in a battle. Lu Ming chuckled. All right, then let's fight. Yin Tenghua waved his hand, and a total of 15 puppets appeared in front of him. Each of them emitted a strong aura. Each of them was a Class 6 LV Stage 10 puppet. Yin Tenghua could actually control 15 Class 6 LV Stage 10 puppets at the same time. Chapter 889. Lu Ming had a faint smile on his face as he stared at the 15 puppets. His expression was very calm. The puppets were getting closer and closer to Lu Ming. Countless people looked at Lu Ming's figure on the stage. They knew that Lu Ming was going to use that move again. Would that move still work on Yin Tenghua? Everyone's eyes were fixed on the stage. Soon, the answer would be revealed. Just when the puppets were a few meters away from Lu Ming took a step forward. On the ground, a total of 15 arrays appeared. In a flash of light, 15 figures that looked exactly like Lu Ming appeared. As soon as they appeared, they pounced on the 15 puppets. Bang! Bang! As soon as the figures came into contact with the puppets, they would explode like balloons and turn into inscriptions that filled the puppets, forming a large array and entering the puppets. Come on, I don't believe that you can cut off the connection between me and the puppets. Yin Tenghua's eyes flickered. Between his eyebrows, the spirit fire jumped. In front of Lu Ming, the 15 puppets stopped moving at the same time. Dazzling lights were emitting from the heads of the 15 puppets. This was Lu Ming cutting off the connection between Yin Tenghua and the puppets. You want to cut off my spirit fire? Impossible. Yin Tenghua roared and stopped all his movements. Light flickered between his eyebrows. A blue spirit fire jumped continuously, turning into invisible spirit threads that connected the 15 puppets. It was indestructible. Between Lu Ming's eyebrows, there was also a blue spirit fire jumping. He was using an array to cut off the connection between Yin Tenghua and the puppets. However, Yin Tenghua's spirit force was much stronger than Feng Tai's. Moreover, the use of the spirit fire had reached the heart of will realm. His spirit force was tenacious and indomitable. It was more than 10 times harder to cut it off than Feng Tai. Lu Ming found that he had encountered a strong resistance. You can't stop me, Lu Ming muttered. The mental energy flame between his eyebrows burned even brighter, as if it was about to materialize. Wave after wave of mental energy rushed into the puppet's head, acting on the array. The puppet's head flashed with light, incomparably dazzling. I won't lose. Yin Tenghua's eyes were incomparably resolute as he resisted with all his might. In the end, he even let out a loud roar as spiritual rings appeared above his head. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, and blue spirit rings. The first 4 spirit rings had 8 light spots on each of them, and they were dazzling. The cyan and blue spirit rings each had 7 light spots. This meant that Yin Tenghua had ignited 8 spirit lamps in the first 4 levels, and 7 spirit lamps in the 5th and 6th levels. If Yin Tenghua couldn't ignite his 8th mind lamp at grade 6, then his next step would be to break through grade 6 to grade 7. In the first 4 levels, he had ignited 8 spirit lamps, and in the 5th and 6th levels, he had ignited 7. Such a result was already very impressive. The appearance of the spiritual ring caused Yin Tenghua's spiritual power to increase greatly. His spiritual power surged into the puppet like a tide. Roar! Roar! The 15 puppets roared as their bodies trembled slightly, as if they were about to be controlled by Yin Tenghua again. Looks like Tianyun's array requires a strong spiritual power to cut off the other party's connection with the puppet. At this time, the others also saw the mystery behind it. This is normal. Otherwise, if it could cut off the other party's connection with the puppet and take the puppet for himself, then this array is too heaven-defying and illogical. Many people nodded. However, they still stared at the battle stage without blinking, waiting to see if Lu Ming could successfully suppress Yin Tenghua. If he couldn't take Yin Tenghua's puppet, then it would be hard to say who would win in a head-on battle. Yin Tenghua, you can't stop me. The corner of Lu Ming's mouth curled up into a smile. At this moment, his eyes seemed to be suffused with a blue light. Buzz. All of a sudden, rings appeared above his head. They were spiritual rings. Tianyun released his spiritual rings. Look at how many spiritual lamps he has lit. Wait, this. Oh my God. I'm seeing things. I'm seeing things. Why did I see 10 spiritual lamps in the first 5 rings? My eyes are also playing tricks on me. Damn it. Why are my eyes playing tricks on me? Why did I see him lighting up 10 spirit lamps? Can you guys help me see how many he has lit up? I also saw 10 spiritual lamps. The first 5 rings all have 10 spiritual lamps. The 6th ring has 5 spiritual lamps. What? Why are you seeing the same thing as me? Are you seeing things too? I saw the same thing too. Me too. The scene was noisy. Almost everyone couldn't believe what they were seeing and subconsciously thought that they were seeing things. But when all of them gave the same answer, they were stunned. All of a sudden, the entire place fell into a deathly silence. Everyone's eyes widened and their mouths opened wider and wider. All of them were involuntarily convulsing. 10 spiritual lamps were lit in the first 5 rings. That was too terrifying. All of them had reached perfection. Was he still human? For tens of thousands of years in the Talisman Puppet Sect, only Emperor Liansong could achieve such a result. Now, there was another one. As for the 6th level, there were only 5 light spots. This was because Lu Ming had yet to reach the peak of this level. Oh my god, he's simply a monster. No wonder. No wonder the masters of the 2 sects and the various elders made Lu Ming a candidate Zhengzi. Isn't it normal to be a candidate Zhengzi with such talent? In the crowd, Rising Sun, Guanrong, Feng Tai, and the others who had been beaten up by Lu Ming were tongue-tied. They stood there in a daze and were completely speechless. It turned out that their enemy was such a monster. At this moment, they were secretly glad that they were still alive. They were simply not on the same level as Lu Ming. Forget it. It's unwise to be an enemy of such a monster. Rising Sun shook his head and sighed. He originally wanted to take revenge on Lu Ming in the future, but now, he had completely given up on that thought. Feng Tai, Guanrong, and the other Sky Prides also shook their heads and sighed. They admitted that they were unlucky. Who asked them to be blind? Jimai, Mengjia, and Hu Ming's eyes widened in shock. It's not wrong for me to lose to him, Hu Ming said with a smile. On the other side, Bai Qi's little mouth was wide open and could not be closed for a long time. This guy, he really hid it from me, Bai Qi thought in her heart. Many elders of the Talisman Puppet Sect were also unaware of this beforehand. At this moment, they were also extremely shocked. They looked at the smiling Bai Shijin and the others in the sky, and finally understood that the elders had long known about Lu Ming's talent. On the battle stage, Yin Tenghua was even more shocked. He was tongue-tied, and even his mental energy ring was shaking. Boom! Chapter 890. Roar! Roar! The puppet's roar shook everyone's spirits and brought them back to their senses. Tianyun, I've lost. Yin Tenghua's shock turned into a deep sigh. Many people sighed in their hearts as well. It was normal for Yin Tenghua to lose. It wasn't that Yin Tenghua wasn't strong enough, but that Lu Ming was too monstrous. He had mastered a formation that could restrain him. After Yin Tenghua admitted defeat, he turned around and was about to leave. Wait, Lu Ming shouted. Yin Tenghua turned around and said, Is there anything else? Your puppet. Lu Ming smiled and pointed at the 15 puppets. Yin Tenghua was slightly stunned. Then he clasped his fists and said, Thank you. Then he waved his hand and put away the puppets, walking down the fighting ring. Well, not bad, not bad. In the sky, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and a few old Yun nodded their heads. He had won and even returned the puppet to Yin Tenghua. This proved that Lu Ming was not someone who was greedy for petty gains. He was upright and upright. He had defeated Feng Tai and kept Feng Tai's puppet because Feng Tai had offended Lu Ming in the past and had a grudge against Lu Ming. Since there was a grudge, of course he had to teach Feng Tai a lesson. Tianyun wins this battle, Meng Chong announced, winning loud cheers. Tianyun, I love you. Loud cheers burst out from nowhere. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound and found that it was from a group of young women. These women's eyes were shining as they looked at the elegant Lu Ming in the fighting ring and shouted loudly. Lu Ming had a delicate appearance. Coupled with his cultivation of martial arts, his temperament was very special and had a different kind of charm. For young women, he was very attractive. At this moment, Lu Ming had displayed his incomparable talent, which naturally attracted the attention of many young women. Lu Ming rubbed his nose with a wry smile and walked down the fighting ring, causing countless young men to cast envious, jealous, and hateful gazes at him. After Lu Ming left the stage, Jimai and Meng Jia stepped onto the stage. The crowd quieted down and turned their attention back to the fighting stage. Jimai's ranking on the list of top 1,000 talents was higher than Meng Jia's, but that was a few years ago. Now, it was hard to say who was stronger. Countless people were curious to know if Meng Jia could fight with Jimai. Without any superfluous words, the two of them made their move. Meng Jia was also a prodigy of the marionette faction. He summoned 15 marionettes at once. Like Yin Tenghua, they were all class 6 10th tier. However, Meng Jia's puppets were much smaller. They were actually puppets with the appearance of large snow-white condors. The snow-white eagle exuded an icy aura. Its wings were like ice blades, dancing in the air and forming a formation that slashed towards Jimai. Jimai's face was calm. He took a few steps and a formation appeared on the ground. Sharp golden sword radiance shot out from the formation and slashed towards the snow-white eagles. At the same time, inscription talismans appeared around him. His mind power flowed, and the inscription talismans opened. Endless golden light burst out. Boom, boom. Suddenly, an earth-shattering roar sounded in the fighting ring. The wings of the snow-white eagle puppets were like blades, constantly colliding with the golden sword radiance. Swoosh! Jimai waved his hand, and a row of inscription talismans flew out. After they were activated, the sky was filled with golden sword radiance. It fell from the sky and slashed towards Mengjia. Mengjia shouted. With a wave of her hands, 3 puppets flew back to her and formed a protective formation around her. Jimai wouldn't be able to break through in a short period of time. For a moment, the 2 of them seemed to be evenly matched. The battle lasted for more than 10 minutes. It seems that Jimai can't defeat Mengjia. Yes, the 2 of them are evenly matched. Mengjia's strength is not weaker than Yin Tenghua's, but also not stronger. So, will Tianyun get first place this time? It's hard to say. Jimai is from the Talisman faction. Tianyun won't be able to restrain him. It's hard to say. Sounds of discussion came from all around. Lu Ming was also watching seriously. He frowned and his gaze fell on Jimai. He had a feeling that Jimai wasn't so simple. Jimai gave him a dangerous feeling. Jimai still had a killing move that he hadn't used yet. At this moment, Jimai waved his hand, and all the inscription talismans that hadn't been activated were put away. The others were stunned. Jimai actually put away the inscription talismans. Was he going to admit defeat? Or was he afraid that if he continued to fight, the inscription talismans would be consumed too much? The puppets of the puppet faction could fight a long battle. The talisman faction used inscription talismans. If they couldn't defeat their opponent in one fell swoop, they would suffer great losses. It was normal for Jimai to admit defeat. Jimai, are you going to admit defeat? Mengjia asked. Fight. Jimai's answer was simple. Then I won't be polite. Mengjia continued to control his puppet and rushed towards Jimai. When Mengjia's puppet approached Jimai, Jimai's hand was like a sword. He slashed out and a dazzling sword light burst out, as if it could split the sky in half. Pong! The sword light accurately struck a large condor puppet. One of the condor puppet's wings was directly cut in half, and the large condor puppet was sent flying far away. At the same time, Jimai's palm slashed out again and again. Pong! Pong! Several eagle puppets were sent flying in succession. They were seriously injured. What a terrifying power. A 6th-level 10th stage puppet was so tough, but it was cut in half by the sword light. Lu Ming's pupil shrank. Martial skill? No, it's an array. It's using one's body to carve an array. Lu Ming was shocked. His gaze fell on Jimai's body. At first, he thought it was a martial skill, but after taking a closer look, he knew it wasn't. At this moment, inscriptions appeared on Jimai's skin, forming a mysterious array. It emitted a terrifying aura that was beyond the spiritual sea level. Carving an array with one's body. Many people cried out in surprise. They were extremely shocked. Indeed, Jimai is carving an array with his body. It should be a 7th-level killing array, the Golden Light 10,000 kill array. Someone from the older generation said, carving an array with one's body. Lu Ming muttered to himself. Carving an array with one's body, as the name suggested, was to carve an array into one's body and merge it with the body. The body itself would become a killing array. It was completely different from the array Lu Ming used to carve true energy eruption arrays on his body to conceal his aura. Lu Ming's arrays were all auxiliary arrays that were temporarily on the surface of the body. After a period of time, when the energy was exhausted, they would naturally disappear. However, carving an array with one's body was different. It was to carve the array into the depths of the body and merge it with the body. The body was the array, and the array was the body. Chapter 891. For example, Jimai had inscribed a 7th grade array, the Golden Light 10,000 slaughter array. Even though it was a 7th grade array, the power of this array was still very strong. It was capable of killing spirit embryo realm practitioners. However, it was too difficult and dangerous to inscribe an array with one's own body. How powerful was the killing formation? The slightest carelessness would cause one's physical body to be minced and turned into ashes, leaving not even a corpse behind. No one had expected Jimai to be able to inscribe an array with his own body. It should be an incomplete array. Otherwise, it would be even more powerful. Some of the older generation figures saw through the array. Many people nodded. That should be the case. If it had been a complete formation, Meng Jia's puppet would have been smashed to smithereens with a single sword strike. However, even if it was an incomplete Golden Light 10,000 killing array, it was still extremely powerful. Moreover, it was difficult for a level 6 inscriber to unleash the full power of a level 7 array. If Jimai can complete the formation and inscribe the complete Golden Light 10,000 kill formation, his combat strength will be amazing. He will be able to fight against the top 100 talents on the list. That's right. If he can complete the array and become a level 7 inscriber, he will be even more powerful. Many people were discussing, Mengjia, do you still want to fight? A sharp light flickered in Jimai's eyes, as if a sword light was about to appear. I can't believe you managed to inscribe an array with your own body. I'm impressed. I'm no match for you. This battle is meaningless. I admit defeat. Meng Jia directly admitted defeat. Meng Chong announced that Jimai had won. Next, Meng Chong announced the second round. Tianyun against Meng Jia, and Jimai against Yen Tenghua. Meng Chong seemed to have intentionally left Jimai and Tianyun for last. I admit defeat in this battle. In the arena, Meng Jia directly admitted defeat against Lu Ming. Her mental strength was on par with Yin Tenghua's. If she were to fight with Lu Ming would definitely seize the puppet in the end. There was no point in fighting this battle. Her final battle would be with Yin Tenghua for the 3rd place. As expected, Yin Tenghua and Meng Jia had the same idea and directly admitted defeat against Jimai. He knew that he wasn't a match for Jimai, so he might as well conserve his mental power and fight Meng Jia. At this point, Tianyun and Jimai had won both of their matches. They had already secured the top 3 spots and secured the spots to enter the observatory. 3rd round, Yin Tenghua against Meng Jia, Tianyun against Jimai. Meng Chong announced. The atmosphere became even more lively. The competition had finally reached its final round. These 2 matches were able to arouse the curiosity in everyone's hearts. Yin Tenghua and Meng Jia were 2 geniuses from the puppet faction, and they were only a few places apart on the list of top 1,000 talents. Who was stronger? Jimai and Tianyun, on the other hand, were the main attraction. Jimai had actually mastered the extremely difficult and dangerous art of carving formations with his own body. His combat prowess was incomparably powerful. Tianyun, this dark horse, seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. The moment he appeared, he was appointed as a Zhengzi candidate by the masters of the 2 sects and the various doyens. This shook the entire heaven and earth mountain. Previously, he had displayed terrifying martial arts combat strength, and this time, the inscription talent revealed in the competition was also incomparably shocking. Between Lu Ming and Jimai, who was stronger? Everyone was looking forward to it. Amidst everyone's anticipation, the competition began. First, Yin Tenghua and Meng Jia competed for 3rd place. Both of them were puppets, and the battle was extremely fierce. The collision between the puppets was violent, direct, and barbaric. Both of their mind power and spiritual fire were at the early stage of heart attainment. It could be said that they were evenly matched. The 2 of them fought for a full half an hour. In the end, Yin Tenghua was more resilient and won by a slight margin. In this way, Yin Tenghua finally secured 3rd place. Then, the final battle between Tianyu and Jimai began. The 2 of them stepped onto the fighting ring and faced each other. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the fighting ring. Who do you think will win, Tianyun or Jimai? It seems like Jimai has a higher chance of winning. After all, he has cultivated the Golden Light 10,000 kill array. It's extremely powerful and unstoppable. I don't think so. Tianyun has many tricks up his sleeve. He's good at many arrays, and his mind power is incomparably strong. Who knows if he has any other tricks up his sleeve? That's true. This battle is going to be interesting. Gradually, the surrounding voices quieted down. Everyone stared at the two people on the fighting ring. Tianyun, I won't hold back in this battle. Be careful. Jimai reminded. That's exactly what I wanted. Go all out. Lu Ming smiled faintly as he stared at Jimai. All of a sudden, a terrifying aura emanated from Jimai's body. Inscriptions began to appear on his skin. Whoosh! Jimai waved his hand, and a terrifying sword light slashed towards Lu Ming. Go! Lu Ming waved his hand, and 12 puppets appeared. They roared as they charged towards Jimai. Bang! A Class 9 giant wolf puppet was sliced in half by the sword light. However, the other puppets didn't stop there and continued to attack. At the same time, Lu Ming stepped forward and waved his hands, starting to inscribe an array on the ground. Whoosh! Whoosh! Jimai waved his hands continuously, and streaks of sword gleams flashed. Lu Ming controlled the puppets to pounce and defend against the sword gleams. Among the 12 puppets, 6 of them were Class 9 giant wolf puppets. They were quickly sliced in half and turned into scrap metal. The other 6 were also severely injured. However, they managed to block the attacks for 10 breaths of time, which bought Lu Ming enough time to inscribe an array. Whoosh! Whoosh! A large array appeared around Lu Ming. Sword chi whistled and thunder rumbled. Endless sword chi bombarded Jimai. It was a top class 6 array, sword roar thunder array. Many people were shocked. They didn't expect Lu Ming to be able to inscribe a top class 6 array in 10 breaths of time. Break for me! Jimai shouted and waved his hands. The inscriptions on his body glowed and emitted a terrifying aura. The sword light collided with the sword roar thunder array. At the same time, Lu Ming continued to inscribe an array. Although the sword roar thunder array was strong, it couldn't resist Jimai. Soon, the array was broken by Jimai. However, in the next moment, Lu Ming's other array appeared. Countless lush vines wrapped around Jimai. Another top class 6 array. Jimai's sword light flashed, and endless sword chi slashed at the vines. However, the vines were too tough and couldn't be cut in half. By the time Jimai broke through this array, Lu Ming had finished inscribing the other 2 top class 6 arrays and was waiting for him. Too fast. Tianyun's inscribing speed is too fast. That's right. His use of spiritual fire isn't as simple as the early heart transcendence stage. It feels even more terrifying than the middle heart transcendence stage. It can't be. Could it be that he's already reached the late heart transcendence stage? That's a realm that only top class 7 inscriptionists can reach. Chapter 892. 10,000 Golden Light Kill. Jimai roared as the inscriptions on his body shone even brighter. Even his eyes were filled with sword chi. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, his entire being seemed to have transformed into a killing formation. Endless sword light burst out from his body, as if every inch of his skin could burst out with sword light. He was like a moving 7th grade formation, crushing towards Lu Ming. Boom! Boom! A terrifying explosion sounded as the 2 6th grade formations that Lu Ming had laid down were destroyed by Jimai in an instant. Lu Ming retreated quickly, his hands and feet not stopping at all as inscriptions continued to spread out. Wong. Another 6th grade formation appeared, but Jimai strode forward, destroying everything in his path. His sword chi was incomparably powerful. At this moment, Jimai's battle power was no weaker than a martial arts practitioner at the 1st level of Spirit Embryo Realm. The 6th grade formation was destroyed in a few breaths' time. Tianyun is going to lose. The 6th grade formation can't stop him at all. That's right. The time he took to inscribe the formations was less than the time Jimai took to destroy them. He's already at a disadvantage and won't be able to hold on for much longer. It's a pity that Tianyun didn't make sufficient preparations before participating in the competition. Didn't you notice? He didn't prepare any puppets or inscription scrolls. That's true. If he had made sufficient preparations, he might have been able to fight. The others, such as the puppet faction, would have prepared many puppets before participating in the competition. The talisman faction would also inscribe many inscription scrolls, but Lu Ming didn't seem to have any. Lu Ming was indeed unprepared. He did have a few inscription scrolls, but the most powerful one was only at the 6th grade and 9th grade, so it wasn't very useful. Bam! Jimai destroyed yet another grade 6 grand formation. Tianyun, admit defeat. You're not my match. Jimai's voice rang out. Is that so? That's exactly what I wanted to say. At this moment, Lu Ming smiled faintly and suddenly stopped inscribing inscriptions. Many people in the surroundings were stunned. They didn't understand why Lu Ming suddenly stopped. From his words, it seemed that he wanted to tell Jimai to admit defeat. What was going on? This guy. The eyes of some senior figures at the domain enlightened spirit god realm flickered successively, and they seemed to have discerned something and were extremely surprised. Let's see what else you have up your sleeves. Jimai strode forward, charging towards Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming took a light step forward. Wong. On the fighting platform, a bright light shone as a huge array appeared. Amidst the resplendent light, countless pillars of fire rushed out. Pillars of fire intertwined with each other, forming a huge cage that trapped Jimai within. Sword light burst forth from Jimai's body, slashing at the pillars of fire. Intense rumbling sounds could be heard, but the pillars of fire remained motionless. He couldn't cut it. A 7th grade formation? Jimai's face paled. 7th level array formation. It's the 7th level array formation. Heavenly Flame Prison? Someone roared as he recognized the array formation. My God! When did Tianyun inscribe a 7th level array formation? He must have inscribed it when he was inscribing the 6th level array formation. Amazing, too amazing. He actually inscribed a 7th level array formation along with the 6th level array formation. He used those 6th level arrays to obstruct Jimai and perfected the 7th level array formation step by step. It's too terrifying. Many people in the surroundings roared and were extremely shocked. It was already an extraordinary feat for a 6th level inscriber to be able to inscribe a 7th level array formation. However, Lu Ming had done it in the middle of a battle. He'd completed it step by step in a battle against a formidable opponent like Jimai in an extremely short amount of time. It was extremely shocking. This was the complete 7th level array formation, Heavenly Flame Prison. However, Jimai's array formation wasn't complete, so it was difficult for him to bring forth its full might. It was utterly impossible for him to break Lu Ming's array formation. What do you think, Jimai? Lu Ming stood outside the array formation as his voice sounded out. The light around Jimai's body dimmed as he let out a long sigh. I admit defeat. He knew that Lu Ming had shown him mercy. If Lu Ming had inscribed a 7th level killing array, he would have been defeated. The Heavenly Flame Prison was merely a trapping array to trap him. Thank you for letting me win. Lu Ming clasped his fists. Then, with a wave of his hand, the inscription disappeared and the fire pillar disappeared. Tianyun wins this battle, Meng Chong announced. Following Meng Chong's announcement, the square was in an uproar. Obviously, this result was completely out of everyone's expectations. Before the start of the competition, no one had expected this result. High up in the air, Bai Shijin stood up from his seat and pressed his hands in the air. All the voices in the square quieted down. Now, this seat announces that the first place of this year's competition is Tianyun. Bai Shijin's voice was like a hurricane, spreading throughout the square. Tianyun, Tianyun. In a certain area, a group of beautiful women were screaming loudly, their faces flushed with excitement. Also, Tianyun is a candidate for Zhengzi. Do you have any objections? Bai Shijin's voice was heard again. The square suddenly fell silent as all eyes gathered on Lu Ming again. Their eyes were a little complicated. Tianyun was such a genius. What objections could they have? This time, he had used his strength to prove himself. Not only was he a genius in martial arts, but even his inscription Dao was so terrifying. How many people in the world could be like him? Tianyun Zhengzi. Suddenly, a loud shout resounded throughout the square. It was Bai Qi Shui. She raised her hand and shouted, Tianyun Zhengzi. Tianyun Zhengzi. In a certain area, a group of women screamed loudly. This time, the shouts were getting louder and louder, and gradually, the others, be it some young male disciples, some female disciples, or even some of the older generation, all began shouting Tianyun Zongzi's name loudly. Among the crowd, Rising Sun, Feng Tai, and the others had a complicated look. Before the competition, they were prepared to humiliate Lu Ming ruthlessly in the competition to get revenge for being beaten up by Lu Ming. However, what happened in the end? In the first 3 rounds of the competition, not only did they fail to humiliate Lu Ming, but they were also humiliated by Lu Ming. In the end, the halo around Lu Ming became even brighter and more dazzling. Compared to him, they were like fireflies. There was no way they could compete with him. Tianyun Zongzi. They smiled wryly and shouted along with the crowd in the end. Lu Ming looked around. At this moment, his eyes and heart were calm. He was well aware of his goal. Currently, he had only obtained the initial approval of the Talisman Puppet sect. However, it was only the initial stage. He still had a long way to go if he wanted to earn their support, especially the elders in the sky. His goal was to win the Battle of Luck. Coming first in the Battle of Luck was his goal. Chapter 893. In the Sky, Bai Shijin's lips curled into a smile. This guy seems to think highly of Lu Ming. On the side, Du Songjue's eyes flashed. He knew that Bai Shijin was building momentum for Lu Ming, but he did not refute or stop him. All right. At this moment, Bai Shijin's voice was heard again, and the scene quieted down. Now, I announce the results of this competition. First place, Tianyun. Second place, Jimai. Third place, Yin Tenghua. Bai Shijin announced, but then his tone changed and he said, originally, we planned to let 3 people enter the observatory this time. But because there are many geniuses this time and the quality is very high, and the Battle of Providence is near, the elders and I have decided to increase the number to 5. Other than Tianyun, Jimai, and Yin Tenghua, Mengjia and Hu Ming can also enter the sky observation platform. All right, the competition is now over. You all can rest for a while and enter the sky observation platform tomorrow. As soon as Bai Shijin's voice fell, the competition ended. Mengjia and Hu Ming were naturally overjoyed. The others also looked at them enviously. Tianyun, I didn't know you were so powerful. Bai Qi Shui looked at Lu Ming curiously. Let's go. Lu Ming pulled Bai Qi Shui's little hand and flew in the direction of Cloud Peak residence. Because in one direction, a large group of young women was flocking towards Lu Ming. That momentum made Lu Ming run away. After flying for tens of thousands of miles, the two slowed down. Suddenly, Lu Ming felt that his hand was holding a soft and cold little hand. He turned his head and saw Bai Qi Shui looking at him with big eyes and a blush on her smiling face. Lu Ming hurriedly let go and said, Sorry, I was in a hurry just now. In a hurry, or taking advantage of me? Bai Qi Shui smiled. Lu Ming was embarrassed and coughed a few times. Why are you running so fast? Isn't it great to have so many beauties chasing after you? You must be secretly pleased with yourself, right? Bai Qi Snow teased. No, I already have someone in my heart. Lu Ming smiled. Xian Yinqing's figure flashed in his mind. He wondered how she was doing. She should have returned to the Central Continent ancient sage dynasty. Oh, is that so? Hearing Lu Ming say that he already had someone in his heart, Bai Qi's snowy face slightly stiffened. A sliver of disappointment and sadness faintly appeared in her eyes, but it only lasted for a moment before a smile once again appeared on her face. She must be very beautiful to be able to catch your eye, right? Yes, very beautiful, Lu Ming said with a smile. Then, he looked at Bai Qi Shui with a smile and teased. What? Don't tell me you've fallen for me? Go away. Don't flatter yourself. Bai Qi Shui's face instantly turned red. Then, she glared at Lu Ming and said, You want me to fall for you? You're still far from it. If you're a genius like Lu Ming, then that's more likely. Cough, cough, cough. Lu Ming could not stop coughing. What's wrong with you? Bai Qi Shui asked. My throat is uncomfortable. Nothing. Lu Ming spouted nonsense. No way, your martial Dao is so strong. How can your throat be uncomfortable? Bai Qi Shui was surprised. It's nothing. let's go back to Cloud Peak Residence first. Lu Ming changed the topic and walked towards Cloud Peak Residence. The next day, Lu Ming came to the top of a mountain. There was a huge altar at the top of the mountain. Jimai, Yin Tenghua, Mengjia, and Hu Ming were with him. In addition, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and a few other founding elders were also there. Now, we'll open the passage to the observatory. You guys can go and cultivate, but you only have a month. After a month, you'll be teleported back. So, during this month, you have to make the best use of your time to cultivate. Bai Shijin warned. Yes. Lu Ming and the others nodded. They knew in their hearts that to open the passage to the observatory and maintain it for a month, it would consume a lot of origin stones. Moreover, the more people entered, the more resources would be consumed. Therefore, the quota to enter the observatory was extremely precious. Before this, only 13 Zongzi candidates of this generation of youths had entered the Zongzi realm. In the past, only 3 people in each generation could enter because the consumption was too great. Now that it was the War of Fortune, and this generation was the Golden Age, more people were allowed to enter. Then, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the 3 founding elders, a total of 5 people, surrounded the huge altar and began to inscribe inscriptions. Countless origin stones flew out of their hands and were devoured by the altar. Buzz. Moments later, the altar shone brightly as inscriptions intertwined. A huge vortex suddenly appeared above the altar. The passage is open. Quickly enter. Bai Shijin shouted. Lu Ming's group of 5 did not dare to delay. They stepped onto the altar and rushed into the vortex. Of course, Dandan did not follow. Lu Ming threw him into the Cloud Peak Residence. The world spun, and in the next moment, Lu Ming found himself standing on a platform. The platform floated in the air, about 2 meters wide. Lu Ming looked around and realized that he seemed to be in the middle of the universe. There was a boundless starry sky in all directions, and below him was also a vast starry sky. There was only one platform floating in the air. On the left and right sides, Lu Ming saw 2 platforms. Jimai, Mengjia, and the other 3 were on one platform, looking around in amazement. In front of them was a vast river that seemed to cross the entire starry sky, stretching from one end of the universe to the other. This is the law of inscription. Lu Ming was shocked. This was not the first time he had seen the law of inscription. In the past, he had only seen it in a meditative state through the spiritual force cultivation method. But now, it seemed like he was very close to the law of inscription. With a single thought, he could feel the vast inscription energy in front of him. Lu Ming's spiritual force fire throbbed violently. Sky observation platform, as expected of the sky observation platform. He could actually observe the law of inscription at such a close distance. At such a close distance, how fast would he be able to absorb the inscription energy? At this time, Jimai's group of 4 was already sitting cross-legged, circulating their spiritual force cultivation method to absorb the inscription energy. Rich inscription energy continuously poured into Jimai's group, turning into 4 pillars of light that enveloped them. Such rich inscription energy, Lu Ming exclaimed. Without further delay, he also sat down cross-legged and circulated the underworld god observation method. Buzz. In an instant, he felt a connection with the law of inscription. A resplendent pillar of light descended from the law of inscription, enveloping Lu Ming within. Jimai, Mengjia, and the other 3 opened their eyes, looking at Lu Ming in shock. They realized that the light pillar formed by Lu Ming's inscription energy was more than 10 times stronger than theirs. What kind of cultivation method is he practicing? Why is it so terrifying? The 4 were astounded. The spiritual force cultivation method they practiced was already the best in the Talisman Puppet sect, but Lu Ming's cultivation method seemed to be even more shocking than theirs. Chapter 894. Lu Ming had no other distractions. He focused on activating the underworld god visualization. He could feel that there was a constant influx of rich inscription power above his head, transforming into mental fire. The mental fire in his sea of consciousness was constantly strengthening. Lu Ming had already ignited 5 blue spirit lamps, and the 5th one had already reached its peak. The flames were intense. Now, not long after, Lu Ming's spiritual fire was growing stronger and stronger. Then, the sixth spiritual lamp emitted a small blue flame. The sixth blue spiritual lamp was lit. Cultivating on the observation platform was too fast. It only took a few hours, which was comparable to half a month of cultivation for Lu Ming. Cultivation continued. Lu Ming could feel that his spiritual fire was growing stronger. Time passed day by day, and the five of them were immersed in cultivation. Not only them, but all the young geniuses and sky prides in the entire Eastern Wilderness, and even the entire Divine Wilderness continent, were immersed in cultivation. The Battle of Providence was approaching, and everyone was doing their best to improve their strength. As for the various major forces, they had also opened up a lot of resources. Everyone was improving rapidly, especially the sky prides who were ranked at the top. Their improvement was even more shocking. The strong were getting stronger. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Lu Ming opened his eyes and ended his cultivation. The other four also stopped cultivating and opened their eyes. Everyone's eyes were filled with joy and satisfaction. Obviously, they had all made great progress in the past month. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat, and he found that 9 blue spiritual lamps were burning fiercely in his sea of consciousness. His spiritual power was surging and exuberant. In a month, a total of 4 spiritual lamps had been lit, which was really shocking. One had to know that it was very difficult to light up after 6 lamps for each level. He wondered what Jimai and the others had achieved, but he guessed that they must have gained a lot. At this moment, a strong tearing force pulled the 5 of them. In an instant, the 5 of them disappeared, and the platform they were sitting on disappeared without a trace. Buzz. With a flash of light, he found himself back on the altar. Bai Shijin and the others were standing around him. All right, it's been a month. I'm sure you've all gained a lot. Go back and digest it, Bai Shijin said with a smile. Subsequently, Lu Ming and the others bid their farewells to Bai Shijin's group and returned to their respective homes. Lu Ming returned to Cloud Peak residence and discovered that in the courtyard, Bai Qi Snow was inscribing inscription symbols. After a while, Bai Qi finished carving and found Lu Ming. How is it? You must have gained a lot from your trip to the Sky Observatory. Bai Qi Snow revealed a hint of envy. Which disciple of the Talisman Puppet sect wasn't envious of being able to enter the Sky Observation platform? It's all right. Do you have any questions about your cultivation during this period? Lu Ming said. Yes, Master has been very busy recently and has no time to guide me. I can only rely on you. Bai Qi Snow giggled and immediately voiced out some of her doubts. Lu Ming muttered to himself for a moment before explaining his understanding. The two of them began to discuss. A few hours later, Lu Ming returned to his room and began to think about the direction of his cultivation. There were only 3 months left before the Battle of Providence. Right now, his path of inscription and refinement had already reached a sufficiently high level. It was very difficult for him to improve greatly within a short period of time. In the remaining time, Lu Ming had to spend all his efforts on martial arts. I need to find a place with many demonic beasts. I can hunt them and devour their blood essence to improve my bloodline. I can also borrow the power of the demonic beasts to temper my intent realm and comprehend martial arts techniques. Lu Ming pondered. Then, he took out a portion of demonic beast blood essence and began to devour and refine it. The last time he bought a batch of blood essence, he had not refined it yet. This time, he used all of it to improve the 9 Dragons bloodline. After the 9 Dragons bloodline awakened the 9 Dragon Claws, the amount of blood essence required was shockingly high. After refining 50 portions of level 6 7th tier demonic beast blood essence and 50 portions of level 6 8th tier demonic beast blood essence, the 9 Dragons bloodline only improved by 1 level to level 2 of the divine level. After the 9 Dragons bloodline leveled up, another dragon force was born in his bloodline. There were a total of 2 dragon forces. At this time, 3 days had passed. 3 days later, Lu Ming walked out of his room and asked Bai Qi Shui if there was a suitable place to cultivate. Bai Qi Shui pondered for a moment and indeed thought of a suitable place. The Ferocious Beast Secret Realm. This was a secret realm controlled by the Talisman Puppet sect. It was considered a mid-sized realm. There were primeval forests everywhere, nurturing countless demonic beasts. These demonic beasts were very primitive. They might not have come into contact with humans, so they could not speak human language and could not transform into human form. They retained their most primitive beast form. This was undoubtedly very suitable for Lu Ming to cultivate. Lu Ming bade farewell to Bai Qi Shui Shui and headed for the entrance of the ferocious beast's secret realm. There were many people at the entrance. Many disciples of the Talisman Puppet sect and even the older generation entered to hunt demonic beasts. After all, an inscription master required various materials. In the ferocious beast secret realm, not only could one obtain materials from killing demonic beasts, one could also obtain blood essence. Tianyun. It's Tianyun Zhengzi. Tianyun Zhengzi. When Lu Ming arrived, many people hurriedly greeted Lu Ming. Lu Ming smiled and nodded. With Lu Ming's identity, it was natural for him to enter the ferocious beast's secret realm. What came into view was an endless mountain range and an endless forest. The roars of demonic beasts could be heard from afar. It was a wild scene. Haha, this is a good place. It's very primitive. It should be a secret realm that has just been developed. I can smell the fragrance of countless spiritual herbs. Dandan stood on Lu Ming's shoulder. Her breasts were contracting and her small eyes were shining. In the surroundings, people flew forward continuously, disappearing into the desolate mountain. Let's go. Lu Ming stepped into the air and flew towards the wild mountains. Lu Ming did not stop and continued to fly deeper. According to Bai Qishua's introduction, the ferocious beast mystic realm was indeed a mystic realm that the Talisman Puppet sect had discovered not long ago. It had not been 10 years, and there was limited development. The deeper he went, the stronger the strength of the demonic beasts. There were even many existences above the spiritual embryo realm. Soon, Lu Ming was 1,000,000 miles deep. He could already see the figures of others here. Roar! A giant lizard that was 7 to 8 meters tall and more than 30 meters long rushed out from the forest and pounced towards Lu Ming. A ferocious aura spread and emitted a powerful aura. Peak 9th level spiritual sea realm. Lu Ming smiled and condensed a long spear in his hand. With a swing, the long spear shot out with 4 types of realm of heaven and earth surrounding it. Puchi. The long spear directly pierced through the head of the giant lizard, leaving a bowl-sized bloody hole. The giant lizard roared and its huge body smashed heavily into the forest, crushing a large area of ancient trees. Roar! The 9 dragons' bloodline appeared and opened its mouth, aiming at the giant lizard. A terrifying devouring force erupted. Chapter 895. Under the devouring of the 9 dragons' bloodline, the giant lizard's corpse shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye. In a few breaths, the giant lizard turned into a dried skeleton. All of its blood essence, demonic energy, and life essence were devoured and robbed by the 9 dragons' bloodline. Lu Ming felt that there were various kinds of energy in the 9 dragons' bloodline. How could this be? It actually devoured all of the energy of a giant lizard. This is too overbearing. Could it be because of the complete awakening of the 9 dragons' bloodline? Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Since his 9 dragons' bloodline was promoted to the divine grade and transformed into the 9 claws form, this was the first time he devoured a demonic beast's corpse. Previously, he only bought blood essence and devoured it. Previously, he only felt that the devouring power of the 9 dragons' bloodline had greatly increased, but he did not expect it to be so overbearing. Lu Ming, it seems that you have fully displayed the 9 dragons' talent. Dandan said. The 9 dragons' talent? Lu Ming was puzzled. Yes, the 9 dragons' strongest talent is to devour everything. All kinds of energy will be devoured and turned into one's own. It is extremely terrifying. Dandan explained. Devour everything and turn it into one's own. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Immediately, Lu Ming sat down cross-legged and began to refine the bloodline. All kinds of energy in the 9 dragons' bloodline began to be refined by Lu Ming. Among them, the blood essence was still turned into bloodline power and absorbed by the 9 dragons' bloodline. The other kinds of energy such as blood essence, life essence, and demonic energy were all refined into true yuan and poured into Lu Ming's spirit sea. Immediately, Lu Ming's true yuan increased by a little. After a while, Lu Ming opened his eyes, revealing a look of pleasant surprise. This was too overbearing. The other kinds of energy were all turned into true yuan and blood essence to enhance the bloodline power. Not a single bit was wasted. In this way, wouldn't he even save on the ores when he cultivated in the future? Haha, I didn't expect the complete awakening of the 9 dragons bloodline to have such a heaven-defying ability. Let's try hunting demonic beasts again. Lu Ming was overjoyed. His figure flickered as he began to hunt for demonic beasts. After killing several demonic beasts in a row, the result was the same. Whether it was their blood essence, demonic chi, or life essence, they were all devoured by the 9 dragons bloodline and turned into his own energy. Amazing! If I wasn't trapped by the concept of heaven and earth, my cultivation would simply advance by leaps and bounds. Lu Ming pondered for a moment before continuing onward, searching for powerful demonic beasts to hunt. Not long after, they went a few 100,000 miles deeper. Roar! With a loud roar, space trembled as a giant staff smashed toward Lu Ming. No, it wasn't a giant stick. It was the trunk of a giant elephant. This mammoth was as big as a mountain and covered in fur. When it swung its trunk, space trembled, causing Lu Ming to feel immense pressure. Level 7 Demon Beast. This was a 7th grade demonic beast that was equivalent to the spirit embryo realm. Roar. The sound of a dragon's roar could be heard, and Lu Ming instantly unleashed a surge of dragon power. Dense scales appeared on Lu Ming's skin. Boom. With a punch, he circulated the suppressing Hell Heaven skill. When the fist and the mammoth's trunk collided, an earth-shattering boom erupted. Lu Ming felt an extremely powerful force surging toward him as his body involuntarily flew backward. However, the mammoth's trunk was also sent flying by him. The mammoth's roar was earth-shattering. Level 1 of Level 7. It's equivalent to Level 1 of Spirit Embryo Realm. I can fight it. Lu Ming stopped in midair as his eyes shone brightly. This mammoth had immense strength, but it wasn't ridiculously strong. Lu Ming could fight it. Swoosh! Lu Ming executed the 9 dragons' heaven-trampling steps and rushed toward the mammoth like a stream of light. The mammoth roared and swung its trunk at an astonishing speed, whipping toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body shifted as he continuously changed his position in midair. He successfully dodged the mammoth's attack and appeared on top of its head, stomping down on it. Bam! With this stomp, Lu Ming unleashed all his strength and the suppressing Hell Heaven skill to the extreme. It was equivalent to an upper-grade half-god martial technique. With Lu Ming's stomp, it landed on the mammoth's head. Boom! With a violent roar, the mammoth's head caved in, accompanied by the sound of bones breaking. Roar! The mammoth wailed and whipped its trunk wildly at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body moved and flew up into the sky. What a strong defense! Lu Ming exhaled deeply with a grave look in his eyes. This mammoth's defense was terrifyingly strong. Under his all-out attack, a 10,000-meter-tall mountain would crumble in an instant. It could sink the ground within a 100-mile radius. However, when it landed on the mammoth's head, it didn't instantly kill it. The mammoth roared and its eyes were bloodthirsty as it charged toward Lu Ming crazily. As it stepped on the ground cracked and countless ancient trees collapsed. It was a scene of doomsday. Whoosh! The mammoth swung its trunk and a gale swept up. A huge gully appeared on the ground as if a valley had appeared out of nowhere. Lu Ming took a step and dodged the mammoth's trunk before rushing toward its head. This mammoth had boundless strength and astonishing defense. However, its weakness was that it was relatively slow. However, its speed was slow compared to Lu Ming. If it was any other person in the spiritual ocean realm, they would have been smashed into pieces by the mammoth's trunk. Lu Ming appeared on the mammoth's head and stepped out once again. The moment he stepped out, a dragon's roar rang out as Lu Ming exploded with another burst of dragon force. With the 2 bursts of dragon force in his body exploding, Lu Ming's attack power reached an astonishing level. Bam! This time, the mammoth's head exploded and a huge hole appeared. The mammoth wailed and fell to the ground. Not long after, it stopped breathing. A mammoth that was equivalent to the first level of spirit embryo realm was killed by Lu Ming. Whoosh! Lu Ming let out a breath and felt that there was only half of his vital essence left in his body. He revealed a bitter smile. Hell-suppressing heaven skill, when used at full power, exhausted a terrifying amount of vital essence. Just 2 strikes and half of the vital essence in his body had been extracted. My battle power on the martial path isn't any weaker than a martial arts practitioner at the first level of spirit embryo realm. Of course, that's only compared to normal martial arts practitioners. Lu Ming pondered in his heart. The reason why he was able to kill the giant elephant in 2 moves was mainly because the speed of the concrete elephant was relatively slow. That was why he was able to hit its vital points twice in a row. If it had been someone else with faster speed, it would not have been so easy to kill it. Lu Ming was very clear about this point. Devour. Lu Ming controlled the 9 dragons' bloodline, and the power of devouring burst out, enveloping the mammoth. The mammoth's body that was as big as a mountain started to shrivel rapidly. What astonishing energy! Find a place to refine it. After devouring the mammoth's energy, Lu Ming's figure flashed and found a cave. He laid down a formation and started to refine it. Whoosh whoosh, billowing energy continuously poured into Lu Ming's body. The vital essence that he had expended was quickly recovered, but the energy was still pouring in continuously. It's too dense. I'm stuck at the concept and my cultivation can't break through. What should I do? Chapter 896. Physical body. Yes, let's try my physical body. Suddenly, Lu Ming had an idea. His physical body had been stuck at the peak of grade 7 for a long time, and he had been neglecting his cultivation. Now is a good time to try and see if the energy could improve his physical body. Whoosh whoosh, Lu Ming activated the myriad spirit battle body. Suddenly, the energy seemed to have found a vent and seeped into his physical body. Lu Ming's physical body began to wriggle and expand, and his bones made cracking sounds. Lu Ming could clearly feel that his physical body was becoming stronger and stronger at a rapid pace. It was beginning to improve. Half an hour later, the energy of the giant elephant was completely refined. Grade 8 physical body. Lu Ming smiled. As expected, the energy he devoured could also improve his physical body. How much should he save in the future? In the future, he could use the resources to buy other things, such as spiritual liquid and cultivating the tree of enlightenment. Lu Ming was about to laugh out loud. Legend has it that one of the basic conditions to break through to the martial emperor realm is to have a body at the peak of grade 9. Lu Ming had an idea. Many spiritual God realm experts would try their best to cultivate their physical body because it was impossible to break through to the martial emperor realm without a body at the peak of grade 9. Of course, Lu Ming was still far away from that. Now was not the time to think about it. It was enough to improve his physical body. The 9 dragons' bloodline did not improve. After refining the blood essence of the giant elephant, the 9 dragons' bloodline did not improve. It was the blood essence of a grade 7 demonic beast. Now, Lu Ming needed a huge amount of blood essence to improve his bloodline. If he were to buy it, he would not be able to afford it. Then, Lu Ming waved his hand, and the tree of enlightenment appeared. Lu Ming sat in front of the tree of enlightenment and began to comprehend the realm of heaven and earth. Just like that, Lu Ming began his days of hard cultivation in the ferocious beast forest. Once he had an inspiration, he would stop cultivating. After a few days of cultivation, he would go hunting demonic beasts to hone his martial skills. The Dandan would wander around the mountains in search of spiritual herbs. Time flew by in a blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, it had already been 2 months and 20 days since Lu Ming entered the vicious beast secret realm. There were only 10 days left before the Battle of Providence. Crash! A figure flew out of a clear lake and stood on the shore. Then, he sent out his quintessence, and not a single drop of water remained on his body. Then, he changed into a blue close-fitting robe. Suddenly, an elegant and graceful young master appeared on the shore. This person was, of course, Lu Ming, who had been cultivating in the ferocious beast secret realm for nearly 3 months. Now, Lu Ming was already 22 years old. His face was chiseled, and he was much more mature than before. He looked even more determined. It's time to go out. The battle of Providence is finally coming. Lu Ming clenched his fists and felt the surging energy in his body. His eyes revealed a trace of anticipation. Dandan landed on Lu Ming's shoulder. Its mouth was filled with the fragrance of herbs. It said, "Haha, this seat has recovered a little. When this seat recovers a little more, watch how I'll torture those so-called outstanding talents. Also, that martial monarch De will be blown to death by this seat." Dandan even burped as it spoke. During this period of time, this fellow had found many high-grade spiritual herbs. He had been eating spiritual herbs every day and had been living a very comfortable life. Whoosh! Then, Lu Ming turned into a beam of light and headed for the exit of the ferocious beast forest. When Lu Ming came out of the ferocious beast forest, his expression changed. He took out a voice transmission jade talisman. "Fatty is here. I nearly forgot." Lu Ming smiled. The moment he came out, he received a message from Fatty. It looked like he was blocked in the secret realm earlier. Immediately, Lu Ming flew out of the Yin and Yang Mountain. At the edge of the Yin and Yang Mountain, there was a huge array platform. This place was guarded by the experts of the Yin and Yang Mountain, who kept the array running smoothly at all times. Lu Ming clasped his fists. "Oh, it's Tianyun Zhongzi. Are you going out?" An old man opened his eyes and said, "I have a few friends who are participating in the Battle of Providence. I want to bring them in." Lu Ming arrived. "All right, take this token with you. You can freely enter and exit the Great Formation of the Two Elements Mountain. However, this token has restrictions. At most, you can bring in strong practitioners of the Spirit Embryo realm. Stronger practitioners will be blocked." A token flew out of the old man's hand, and Lu Ming caught it. "Thank you, Senior." Lu Ming thanked him and stepped out. When he walked out of the Yin Yang Mountain, there was suddenly a layer of ripples in the space that was originally normal. Lu Ming took a step forward and stepped out. He flew forward and came to a small city thousands of miles away. He saw Fatty and, of course, Wantingting. "Lu Ming, I finally see you. We arrived 5 days ago and have been sending you messages, but there was no news." Fatty laughed when he saw Lu Ming. He wanted to give Lu Ming a bear hug, but he was almost kicked out by Lu Ming. "Lu Ming." Wantingting walked over and greeted him with a smile. "Ting Ting." Lu Ming nodded with a smile. He realized that both Fatty and Wantingting's auras were much stronger than before. They were much stronger than they were half a year ago. This was especially so for the Fatty. Lu Ming could sense a terrifying aura from him. This aura was hidden in the depths of the Fatty's body. Lu Ming could also sense a trace of it with his sensitive spiritual senses. This aura seemed to be able to destroy everything and was extremely sharp. It seemed that both Fatty and Wantingting had made great progress under the guidance of the demonic Sky Divine Emperor. After all, they were taught by the Divine Emperor himself. How many people in the world could do that? "Fatty, you've awakened your third bloodline?" Lu Ming asked. "Yes, I've awakened it." "Hee Lu Ming, I'm not afraid of you now." Fatty grinned. "Oh, what level is it?" Lu Ming asked. "It's a secret now. When the Battle of Providence starts, I promise you'll be shocked." Fatty chuckled with a mysterious look. "Go away," Wantingting said with disdain. Lu Ming also pointed his middle finger at Fatty. "Ting Ting, you've also awakened a divine bloodline, right?" Lu Ming looked at Wantingting. He could also feel a powerful aura from Wantingting's body. "Yes, I was lucky enough to awaken it with the help of Senior Demonic Sky. Third-level divine bloodline," Wantingting said, and then a trace of aura flashed from her body. 7th level of the spiritual sea realm. Wantingting's cultivation had actually reached the 7th level of the spiritual sea realm. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. The demonic Sky Divine Emperor's methods were indeed unpredictable. In just half a year, not only did Wantingting successfully awaken a 3rd-level divine bloodline, but her cultivation also broke through to the 7th level of the spiritual sea realm. Half a year ago, Wantingting's cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the spiritual sea realm. The speed of her progress could be said to be extremely shocking. This was the method of the Divine Emperor. It was difficult to predict. Chapter 897. Lu Ming was happy for them. After all, they were friends. Let's go to Liangyi Mountain, Lu Ming said. Then, the three of them headed towards Liangyi Mountain. They arrived at Liangyi Mountain after a while. With Lu Ming's token, the three of them entered Liangyi Mountain easily. Lu Ming returned to the array platform and returned the token to the old man. Then, he flew towards Yun Peak residence with Fatty and Ruan Tingting. Hey, you're keeping a mistress in your house. As soon as they arrived at Yun Peak residence, Fatty yelled when he saw Bai Chi Shui. He did not call Lu Ming by his real name as he knew that Lu Ming was using a fake name. Get lost. Lu Ming lifted his leg and kicked. Bai Chi Shui's face turned red. Fatty was stunned when he saw Bai Chi Shui's shy expression. Then, he looked at Lu Ming with admiration and said, "Brother, I'm impressed. I really admire you. You have beautiful women accompanying you wherever you go, and you're even living together. But you're too much of a playboy. How can I be worthy of Miss Ye? Look at me. I'm so devoted. I only have Tingting in my heart." After saying that, he blinked his small eyes and looked at Ruan Tingting ingratiatingly. Get lost. Go away, Ruan Tingting said in disdain. Lu Ming gave a flying kick and the fatty's fat body was sent flying. He landed on his face like a dog eating shit. Chi Shui, these two are my friends, Fatty Kongjin and Ruan Tingting. Lu Ming introduced them to Bai Chi Shui. They were all young people, so they got familiar with each other after playing around for a while. Lu Ming arranged a courtyard for Fatty and Ruan Tingting on a mountain peak near Yun Peak residence. Liangyi Mountain became lively in the following days. The Battle of Providence was approaching. Almost all the elites had come out of seclusion and adjusted their mentality to prepare for the Battle of Providence. Even the other 13 Zongzi candidates had come out of seclusion. Days passed. 2 days before the Battle of Providence began, Bai Shijin sent someone to invite Lu Ming to meet him. When Lu Ming arrived at the Talisman Puppet Sect's meeting hall, he noticed that Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, Meng Chong, and other eminent elders of the Talisman Puppet Sect were all present. In the middle of the hall, there were 13 youths. There were both men and women among the 13 youths, and all of them had extraordinary bearings. It was obvious that they were giants among men. As soon as Lu Ming entered, the gazes of the 13 young men and women all turned to look at Lu Ming. Some were curious, some were peaceful, some were friendly, and some were not. They should be the other 13 Zongzi candidates. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat, and he curiously sized up the other party. These 13 people were ranked in the top 100 on the list of top 1,000 talents. Every one of them was extraordinary and stood at the peak of the eastern wilderness and the endless domain. Tianyun, you're here, Bai Shijin said with a smile. Tianyun pays his respects to the seniors. Lu Ming bowed in front of the mountain. Well, get to know each other. He's Tianyun. Bai Shijin nodded. Junior brother Tianyun, I've heard a lot about you. A young man stepped forward with a gentle smile on his face. This young man had a head of silver hair that cascaded down to his waist. He was very handsome and always had a gentle smile on his face, which made it easy for people to have a good impression of him. A mysterious aura was emitted from his body all along, as if he was not a mortal and did not belong to the mortal world. The strangest thing was his eyes. His eyes were silver in color, and they were double pupils. Each of his eyes had double pupils, making him look incomparably sinister. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat, and he thought of someone. Silver-haired heavenly eyes, illusion? He was ranked 8th on the list of top 1,000 talents, and the only genius from the Talisman Puppet Sect to make it to the top 10. He was known as a peerless genius and the top inscriptionist among the younger generation in the eastern wilderness. He was extremely talented, and it was said that his heavenly eyes could see through all formations and inscriptions. It was extremely magical. Cough, cough, cough. Before Lu Ming could speak, Bai Shijin coughed and said, Huanjun, don't call Tianyun Junior brother. You can call each other by their names. Huanjun and the other Sky Prides looked at Bai Shijin in surprise. Bai Shijin's face was slightly red, and the other founding elders were a little embarrassed. Lu Ming was amused. He understood what Bai Shijin and the rest meant. Lu Ming was his master. He was Lian Song, and his seniority was very high. Even Bai Jin had to address him as martial uncle. But now, Huanzhen called Lu Ming junior brother. Wasn't that taking advantage of Bai Jin? He knew Lu Ming well, but Huanzhen and the others did not. They all looked at each other. Well, you young people get to know each other quickly. Let's talk about business. Bai Jin coughed and changed the topic. The Battle of Providence is about to begin. But you should know that our talisman puppet sect is the weakest among the 4 superpowers in the Eastern Wilderness. The number of geniuses is decreasing year by year, while the other superpowers, such as the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace and the Heavenly Corpse sect, are getting stronger and stronger. In the past 1,000 years, my talisman puppet sect has always been at the bottom in every battle of Providence and has been ruthlessly suppressed. The amount of Providence we obtain has become increasingly less, and the strength of our sect has also become increasingly weaker. Therefore, this time, the first thing you must do is to be united and not fight amongst yourselves. Your strength is already weak to begin with. If you still fight amongst yourselves, the final result is very likely to be complete annihilation. Bai Jin's eyes were bright as he warned them seriously. We will remember. Huanzhen, Lu Ming, and the others solemnly replied, yes. Bai Jin nodded his head in satisfaction and continued. The Battle of Providence occurs once every 20 years, but the area you enter each time is different. It is truly incomparably mysterious, but there is a common point. Every time, there is a great opportunity, and when you obtain the opportunity, you will also obtain Providence. This is your chance. If you can obtain a great opportunity, you may be able to suppress the geniuses of your generation, dominate the Eastern Wilderness, and lead the talisman puppet sect to rise. Bai Jin's voice was filled with temptation, causing all the young people present to clench their fists tightly, filled with anticipation. However, Bai Jin's voice immediately changed as he said, however, the Battle of Providence is also known as the burial ground of geniuses. Every time, there will be a large number of geniuses who will die in it. However, this world is so cruel. The strong will become stronger, and the weak will only be stepped on. So you must be mentally prepared. However, the 14 people, including Lu Ming, all had resolute gazes and did not waver. They were all peerless geniuses. Since they had embarked on the path of cultivation, they would bravely advance until they reached the peak. There was no reason for them to retreat. They were filled with confidence in themselves. Good. It's good that you are confident. Du Songjue, who had not spoken until now, opened his mouth. I have one more thing to tell all of you. Du Songjue pondered for a moment and continued. Master Liao Song once said that the world we are in is called the Yuan realm. The Yuan realm is vast and boundless, and no one knows how wide it is. Not to mention Emperor realm experts, even those stronger than that do not know its boundaries. Chapter 898. Du Songjue's words caused the hearts of the young people present to tremble, and they were all dumbstruck. Our divine wilderness continent is just a drop in the ocean. There are many other continents like the divine wilderness continent overseas, and some are even hundreds or thousands of times bigger than the divine wilderness continent. A young man exclaimed, his eyes wide and mouth agape. Huanzhen and the others were the same. They were too shocked. In the past, they thought that the divine wilderness continent was the center of the world. Although they knew that there might be other continents overseas, they thought that having 2 or 3 similar continents was already shocking enough. But Du Songjue used the word many, and the fact that there were hundreds or thousands of times bigger than the divine wilderness continent was unbelievable. The divine wilderness continent was vast and boundless. There were hundreds of regions in the eastern wilderness. It was vast and boundless. The southern underworld, the northern plains, and the western desert were also vast and not smaller than the eastern wilderness. The middle continent was said to be even more vast and full of outstanding people. There were so many other continents overseas. Everyone was stunned. Right now, Lu Ming was the only one who was slightly better. The mid-autumn moon might have been taken away by people overseas. He had once entered a small island in the heavenly realm by chance and widened his horizons. He knew that the world was vast beyond his imagination. That's right. If you're not an emperor, It's difficult to leave the divine wilderness continent and go overseas, so we don't know. Master Liaosong once said that the War of Providence doesn't only involve the divine wilderness continent. According to Master, the entire Yuan realm and other continents will have a War of Providence. Du Songjue said again. This time, even Lu Ming was dumbfounded. Not only the divine wilderness continent, but also the other continents overseas would have a War of Providence. That was too shocking. What was the reason for it? How could it be carried out in such a vast area at the same time? Or rather, were the wars of providence all connected? Was it the natural operation of the heavenly Tao? Or was it controlled by someone? If it was controlled by someone who had such terrifying power to control the vast territory of the Yuan realm at the same time, at that moment, Lu Ming's mind was filled with thoughts. Master once said that if you stand out in the War of Providence and achieve a certain result, you'll have unexpected gains. Du Songjue said, a certain result? What result? Lu Ming and the others were surprised. This, I don't know either. Master didn't explain it in detail back then, but it seems like it's extremely difficult to reach that standard. In short, you just have to do your best. All right, I've said what I needed to say. You can go now. Prepare yourself. Lu Ming, Huan Zhan, and the rest nodded and left the hall. After Lu Ming left the main hall, he flew directly to Baibao Pavilion to purchase some items before returning to Cloud Peak Residence. Big Brother Yin. Near Cloud Peak Residence, Lu saw Yin, and, after not seeing each other for half a year, Yin Kuangtu finally appeared. Yin Kuangtu smiled. At this moment, Yin Kuangtu's body flashed, and the figure of Supreme Nine Suns appeared. Lu Ming bowed. He was happy for Supreme Nine Suns. Lu Ming, how's the preparation for the War of Providence? Supreme Nine Suns smiled. It's going well. Lu Ming nodded. Yes, with your current cultivation and combat strength, it's still very difficult for you to stand out. However, the Battle of Providence will last for a year. That's enough time for you to rise up. Therefore, you have to make good use of this year's time. Only then will you be able to surpass everyone else in the Battle of Providence. Supreme Nine Suns said. For example, Supreme Nine Suns and Yin Kuangtu had participated in the War of Providence back then and obtained great opportunities. Lu Ming nodded seriously. He knew that his current battle strength and cultivation were more than enough to deal with ordinary sky prides. However, there was still a gap between him and the top 100 geniuses on the list of 1,000 geniuses. Lu Ming, we just came back to see you. We won't see you off in the War of Providence. Master's recovery has reached a critical moment. We'll set off again soon and leave Yinyang Mountain. Yin Kuangtu said, there's no need to see me off. Senior Nine Suns' recovery is more important. Lu Ming nodded quickly. Then, the three of them chatted for a while. Supreme Nine Suns and Yin Kuangtu mainly talked about their experiences in the War of Providence, hoping that it would be helpful to Lu Ming. They chatted for 2 hours before Yin Kuangtu and Supreme Nine Suns left. Lu Ming returned to Yun Peak Residence. Time flew by. A few days passed in the blink of an eye. The War of Providence finally arrived. There was a huge boulder behind Yinyang Mountain. On the boulder, there was a huge round stone covered with mysterious carvings. The stone gave off a heavy and ancient feeling. In the past, this place was forbidden to the Talisman Puppet sect. Other than some elders, ordinary people were not allowed to enter. However, there were now thousands of people gathered here. Upon reaching this place, Lu Ming realized that this was the place to participate in the Battle of Providence. The entrance to the War of Providence was in a very mysterious place. No one could enter from other places. They had to go through a special passage. The Talisman Puppet Sect, Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, Heavenly Corpse Sect, and Sky Monster Valley all had this special passage. Usually, this passage was useless and had no effect. Only when the War of Providence started, this passage would automatically activate. Whichever force you entered through the passage represented which force you participated in the War of Providence. Your future achievements would be credited to that force and luck would descend. This time, the Talisman Puppet Sect sent thousands of people to participate in the War of Providence. Other than some true geniuses, they also selected many experts with high cultivation from the younger generation. After these young experts entered, they could assist those geniuses. Moreover, who knew who would be lucky enough to obtain a great opportunity and gather great luck? No one could be sure. Therefore, there were more or less benefits to having more people enter. Lu Ming, Fatty, Ruan Tingting, Bai Qi, and Shui stood together. Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and some elders stood in front and stared at the huge round stone. Legend had it that when a force became an overlord and a ruler was born, the ancient city of Providence would fly out such a stone and descend on that force. It meant that the force was qualified to send people to participate in the War of Providence. When a force was completely weakened, this stone would automatically fly away. This also meant that the force had completely declined. Buzz. Suddenly, the round stone shook. The carvings on it started to flicker with light. A mysterious aura circulated. Chapter 899. All right, everyone, follow me. Bai Shijin shouted and stepped into the vortex. Swoosh, swoosh. Many figures flew up and stepped into the vortex. With a flash of light, the people who stepped into the vortex disappeared. Let's go. Lu Ming and the rest followed the crowd. They flew into the vortex and disappeared. Finally, Du Songjue and a few other doyens also stepped in. With a flash of light, Lu Ming and the rest found themselves on a huge platform. It was a huge platform made of stone. There were patterns on it, and behind it was a huge wall that blocked the way out. There was a vortex above their heads. This was the spatial tunnel that they had used to enter. After Lu Ming and the rest went to participate in the battle, Bai Shijin and the rest went out from there. The direction in front seemed to be empty. It was an endless abyss, and there was a huge door of light on the other side of the abyss. That's the entrance to the Battle of Providence. Bai Shijin's voice rang out as he pointed at the door of light on the other side of the abyss. Lu Ming was surrounded by disciples of the Talisman Puppet Sect. They had gathered together. Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the rest had also entered. The people from the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, Heavenly Corpse Sect, and Sky Demon Valley have also arrived. Fatty said softly from the side. Lu Ming looked over. He saw the people from the other three forces on the platform. Like the Talisman Puppet Sect, all the forces had gathered together. So many people. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He found that there were more than 10,000 people from the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. The Heavenly Corpse Sect also had close to 10,000 people. The Sky Demon Valley had fewer people, but there were still more than 3,000 people. How could this be? How could there be so many geniuses in the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace? The Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was considered a supreme talent. The previous list of top 1,000 talents and the recent rising supreme talents added up to less than 800 people. Including some young experts, there were at most 3,000 to 4,000 people. How could there be so many people? Tianyun, I heard that the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace and the Heavenly Corpse Sect don't have that many supreme talents and young experts, but they will train a group of men of sacrifice. Bai Qi Shui said softly. Death warriors? Lu Ming was puzzled. That's right, loyalists. Do you see that group of black-robed people behind the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace and carrying all kinds of weapons? The Emperor Heaven Divine Palace uses a special method to bring out the full potential of some young people. Before the age of 30, their strength will soar crazily and enter an extremely powerful realm. But the consequence is that those young people's potential will be completely exhausted, and their lifespans will be greatly shortened. Their minds will become numb, and they will only know to obey orders without fear of death. Their goal is to participate in the Battle of Providence and assist the other geniuses to obtain opportunities and providence. Bai Qi Snow explained. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. For the sake of the War of Providence, these major factions could be said to have exhausted all their means. Look, those people from the Heavenly Corpse Sect who are wrapped in blood-red robes are also death warriors. Our Talisman Puppet Sect cultivates the Tao of Inscription. We don't have such an outrageous secret technique, so we won't do it. The Heavenly Demon Valley's demon tribe is very arrogant and won't do it either. Therefore, there are very few of them. Bai Qi Snow said. Lu Ming nodded. He understood. These death warriors were nothing more than young people who were cultivated with a secret technique. Their bone ages were below 30 years old, and they were used to participate in the Battle of Providence. Lu Ming stood in the crowd and scanned the three major factions. In the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace area, he saw the 6 great ancient families and the 6 supreme martial artists. In each faction, there were dozens of young men and women who had extraordinary auras and unfathomable strength. Needless to say, these people were all at the top of the list of top 1,000 talents, or at the same level. Lu Ming was sizing them up, and they were sizing them up too. Haha, by Serene, Du Songjue. I didn't expect the Talisman Puppet Sect to still dare to participate in the Battle of Providence. Aren't you afraid that this generation of young people will die? A burst of laughter suddenly sounded from the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. Lu Ming looked in the direction of the voice and recognized that it was the Wang family head, a supreme martial artist who had almost been killed by Lu Ming with the Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. Wang Shengtian. By Sergene's face darkened and he snorted coldly, not saying a word. Well, the Talisman Puppet Sect is getting worse with each generation. If this generation of people die in there, you old fellows won't be able to hold on for long. The Talisman Puppet Sect will be destroyed sooner or later. The Wang family head, Wang Shengtian, continued to sneer as his gaze swept across the Talisman Puppet Sect. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He retracted his aura and moved, wanting to use the figures of others to block his body. But in the next moment, he realized that a cold gaze had landed on him. It was Wang Shengtian's gaze. At this moment, Wang Shengtian's eyes were filled with terrifying killing intent as he stared at Lu Ming. Lu Ming, it's you? I didn't expect you to run to the Talisman Puppet Sect, Wang Shengtian shouted angrily. Back then, during the Battle of Nine Dragon City, he was almost smashed to death by Lu Ming using the Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. A prime of his generation had ended up in such a state, and he had lost all his face. He hated Lu Ming deeply. With his cultivation, even if Lu Ming changed his appearance and retracted his aura, he would still be able to see through him with a single glance. Whoosh! Whoosh! Following Wang Shengtian's voice, everyone from the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace looked over at the Talisman Puppet Sect. Lu Ming, who in the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace didn't know this name. Not only the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace, but the other factions also looked over. What? Lu Ming? Lu Ming is among us? Most of the people from the Talisman Puppet Sect were shocked as they sized each other up. By Serene, Du Songjue, and the others' faces darkened. Little bastard, don't think you can hide from me by hiding in the crowd. You're actually in the Talisman Puppet Sect? Humph, let's see how you'll die. Wang Shengtian sneered. The other 5 supreme beings' eyes turned cold as they looked at Lu Ming. They had also lost face in the battle that day. 6 supreme beings had joined forces, but they still couldn't take down a junior like Lu Ming. Lu Ming? Who's Lu Ming? Bai Qi Shui's eyes widened as he scanned the surroundings. Hide? Why should I hide? What can you do to me here? Lu Ming spoke. His clear voice resounded throughout the entire place. After saying this, he strode out and arrived outside the crowd. This place was the entrance to the Battle of Providence. It was extremely mysterious and had a strong suppressive effect. The older one was, the stronger the suppression. For example, Wang Shengtian, a supreme being who had lived for thousands of years, could only display the cultivation of the spiritual embryo realm. What did he have to fear? This was something that everyone knew. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come here openly. Yin Kuang-tu and Supreme Nine Sons wouldn't be at ease and didn't follow him. Once they entered this place, those experts wouldn't be able to display much of their strength. Lu Ming didn't want to be discovered at first, as he only wanted to avoid some trouble. However, since he was discovered, he might as well stand out. At this moment, everyone's eyes were gathered on Lu Ming. Tianyun? You're Lu Ming? Bai Qi Shui widened his eyes and was dumbfounded. His eyes were filled with disbelief. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.